Scotland, they are now looking to make it easier with the SNP's Gender Recognition Reform Bill. They want to make it easier for people to change identities in terms of without medical checks. They want it to be possible to change your identity at the age of 16, not 18, and with just 3 months' notice, as opposed to having actually to wait for 2 years. Well, I'm delighted now. We're joined by Maren Smith, spokesman for Women Scotland, on this issue. Maren, a very good morning to you. So this is all very nice for the SNP. Nicola Sturgeon, trying to make things easier for people who want to transition from one sex to another. What's the problem, Maren?
Good morning. The problem is that the bill isn't really intended to help people transition from one sex to another, for the very simple reason that that is not possible. What the bill is proposing to do is opening the eligibility criteria from less than 1% of the population to 100% of the population. You no longer have to show that you have a medical need to be legally recognised as the opposite sex. And for us, the problem is that we have a lot of legal opinions. We also have a number of court judgments that show there is a difference between someone who has a gender recognition certificate and someone who does not have a gender recognition certificate who seeks access to spaces and services provided for the opposite sex.
Right. And so how do you get a gender recognition certificate currently?
At the moment, what you would do is, if you feel quite substantial amounts of distress, you would go and, to begin with, you would go and see your GP, who would then diagnose you with gender dysphoria, and who would talk over your options with you. A medical transition is not right for everybody. It's also not possible for everybody. And you would also be further referred to a psychologist. You would then provide evidence of this diagnosis and the second medical opinion to a panel which never sees you. They don't ask you any intrusive questions. You also collect evidence of what the law calls living in your chosen gender. And what this amounts to is that you show that you have changed your name on gas bills, utility bills, phone bills. There is no one who checks whether you have changed your appearance. You just have to show that you have a medical need and that you would essentially function better if you were to be allowed to live in the role of the opposite sex.
So, so that's literally just a virtual consultation as opposed to a proper face-to-face discussion.
There's no discussion at all with the applicant. So this is actually the most successful law we have in our books. 95% of applicants are successful. You can reapply as often as you like after a waiting period of 6 months. And usually you actually have access to a civil servant free of charge who will help you get all the necessary documentation together. The Gender Recognition Panel, which is made up out of a number of people who sit generally on tribunals who decide a lot of things across the UK in terms of legal matters, they would only look at your paperwork. They don't talk to you. They don't ask you any questions.
That all sounds common sense. So why the pressure for this new bill and to make it so much easier with all the implications?
Well, that's a really good question. This is exactly the point we're making. The Scottish Government hasn't made the case for reform. What we have right now is currently cited as international best practice in other countries. There are, in fact, very few countries in the world who allow people to change their legal sex at all. And there are even fewer countries who allow people their legal sex without having to medically transition. And before COVID hit, I actually spent a lot of time in the National Archives in Scotland, looking through the original meeting minutes, letters between ministers, when they wrote the Gender Recognition Act in 2004. This was in response to a court case at the European Court of Human Rights, where a post-operative transsexual wanted to get married and couldn't because the UK did not have same-sex marriage, and also it didn't recognise that this person was living as a woman and wanted to marry a man and couldn't. And so when the bill was discussed originally, the intention was to insist on a medical transition.
But I mean, clearly it's your concern, I think, is the concern of so many, Maren, which is that it's too easy and you haven't got the proper safeguards there.
Yes.
To finish, is that right? And well,
and back then the bill was intended to be for a very, very small number of very vulnerable people who needed protection that didn't exist in law.
Well, it's
and they got this protection. The bill works incredibly well, and the numbers that were in 2004 estimated to be applying for a gender recognition certificate was 5,000, and we've just hit that 5,000 mark. So
in 18 years, Maren, we're going to have to leave it there. But thank you very much indeed for your thoughts